Hi, and welcome to Rupert Cooks. So what is the most disappointing pie in the world? It's that pie you shouldn't have ordered. You know what I'm talking about. Usually it's in some sort of like roadside chain restaurant situation, and they have the big, stand-up thing with the spinning pies in it, and you get done with your meal and you're like, man, I know I'm gonna be disappointed. Then you order that pie and you are disappointed. And that is the worst. But what is the worst of those? I know, kitty. Well, for me, the absolute worst of those is the roadside chain restaurant pecan pie. And the reason for this is it usually has a very thick, cakey, doughy crust with a big ruffle on the edge. And then it has this layer of gook. It's like this light tan jelly. I don't know what this stuff is. It's some sort of mucilage. It's disgusting, okay? And then it's got this thin little layer of pecans on it that's almost good. But like this mucilage and this cakey crust, you're just chewing on it and it tastes like, I don't know, a big wad of like crunchy style Elmer's glue in your mouth. So I hate that. So what I like in a pecan pie is something a little bit thinner, because pecan pie is just crazy sweet, and I really don't like that huge hunkin' thing of stuff where it's just like too sweet to get through and too cakey and everything. So what I like is a thin cookie-like crunch in the crust and thin ingredients, so I'm not eating pounds of sugar with every slice and like you feel like you're gonna throw up. It's disgusting. What we're gonna be making today is a kind of pecan pie that I like, that will be not the world's most disappointing pie. Let's get to it. Okay, so let's get this pecan pie started. I have 1/2 of a scrambled egg. Don't worry about that. I know that's a really annoying measurement, but we're going to use the other half later on. A 1/4 teaspoon salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 3 tablespoons of softened butter, diced up as you can see, and 2 tablespoons of milk and a cup of flour. And we're going to start this with our mixer to get our dough ready, because as we all know, the dough's going to have to rest a little bit. So let's get to that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is put in our butter, our sugar, and our salt. And we are going to beat this with the paddle attachment until everything is creamy. All right, so that was about 30 seconds or a minute or so. So now we are going to add the egg and just go for not that long, 30 seconds or something like that, just to get it sort of blended in. Okay, so next we're going to add our 1 cup of flour, and this is where if you overbeat it, you will get a stiff dough or a tough dough. So I'm going to put it in our 1 cup of flour, and I'm going to go about 5 seconds on low or medium, and then 5 seconds on high. Trying not to fling the flour all over the place. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4, 5. And that's actually really good right there. But as with all mixers, you really need to do a scrape down. So I'm just going to do a scrape down and another quick little hit, and our dough will be done. That's it. You saw how long I did that. So that's what we're going to do. Because this dough has a lot of sugar in it, relative to the other ingredients, it is going to bake up to be quite crispy. And that combination, if you overmix it with tough, it has a tendency to get that way. But even if it's tough, it's going to be delicious. So we will roll this into a little patty and refrigerate it for about an hour. And in that hour, we can work on our sweet potato filling. So let's get to that. All right, so for the filling, I am using yams here. You can use yams or sweet potatoes. I like yams because they're a little bit sweeter and a little bit more colorful. So I have 1 cup pat of cooked yams. That's about 1 yam. And I just prick it all over with a fork and throw it in the microwave. Go about 5 minutes, see if it's done. This one took, I don't know, 7 minutes to get done. And 1/4 cup brown sugar, a remaining half of an egg, 2 tablespoons of sugar, a tablespoon of heavy cream, 2 tablespoons of butter softened, 1 whole tablespoon of vanilla extract. Yes, that's quite a bit, but that's what we're using here. Then here I've got 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/8 of a teaspoon each of allspice and nutmeg. And all we're gonna do is put these in the mixer, mix them all together until blended, and set them aside and wait for our dough. Okay, so we've mixed for about 2 minutes. You do not want to overmix this because it'll aerate it too much, but that's about what it looks like there. And we're just going to set this aside while we wait for our crust to get done in the refrigerator, wasting time. But we'll roll that out next and start spooning in our filling. All right, so our dough has been in the refrigerator for about an hour. And just going to neaten up the edges a little bit here. We want to roll this out to around 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch thickness to fit our pie pan, cookie type pie dough. It's just about there. And once our dough is all rolled out to a reasonably even thickness, we can get it up on the rolling pin, set our pie pan down, and hopefully it'll all fit in there reasonably well. So I'm going to go around, push it into the little indentations around the pie pan, and I'll trim it up. I'm going to try and hook a little bit over the edge here. That's going to help it not sag down too much when we bake this. All right, so we are going to put this in the refrigerator for 15 minutes. And while we are waiting on that, we are going to preheat our oven and make our pecan topping. So back for that. All right, so for our pecan syrup, we are going to need 1.5 tablespoons of melted butter, 2 eggs, 3/4 of a cup of peanut halves, pinch of salt, pinch of cinnamon, do it to taste. Yet again, more vanilla, a teaspoon of vanilla, 3/4 of a cup of dark corn syrup, K-Rose syrup if you prefer the vernacular, and 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And what we're going to do is mix everything except for the pecan halves in the mixer, and then stir in our pecan halves. So let's get to that. All right, so we have all our ingredients in the mixer, and we are going to mix on slow, and we're just trying to get these mixed together until it's opaque. About a minute. You do not want to go on fast because then you will whip the eggs and aerate this and saggy pie. So, but we'll get everything all blended up. Then we're going to stir in our pecans. And that's about where our syrup looks. It's opaque, blend it together nicely, and put in our pecan halves. Give it a stir up. If you're one of those who likes to arrange your pecans in a pattern on top of the pie, you can leave that for the last little touch. I kind of like the more random look. But let's get our crust out of the refrigerator and start filling it up and ascend the final plateau of getting this thing in the oven. All right, so our crust is chilled for about 15 minutes in the refrigerator. And we've got our pecan topping here, as well as our sweet potato filling. So let's get that in there. And this is what's going to be replacing our unknown mucilage that we usually find in diner pecan pies. And then we will pour on our topping and try and get the pecans arranged or reasonably evenly distributed. And we are all set to go in the oven. We are going to bake this at 325 for about an hour and 45 minutes until we pass the usual knife comes out clean test, or toothpick, or whatever you want. The thing of it is this crust can brown quite a bit before it comes out. So you might want to check it at around, I don't know, 45 minutes or so, and put some aluminum foil around here if it starts getting too dark on the exposed crust. But let's get it in the oven and see how things go. Okay, so we are done in the oven, and I put some foil around the edges at around half an hour in because I noticed that they were getting a little bit dark. So you might want to check it at that point. And you probably can't hear it on the microphone, but this is bubbling and cracking like lava. So I'm going to wait a little bit and we're going to slice it open and see what it looks like. Be back in a bit. Okay, so I sliced out a little piece. It's still a little bit warm, so you know, it's not as firm as it'll be if you let it sit out for a little bit more. But I wanted to show you how we've avoided the nasty mucilage layer that is so prevalent in chain restaurant pecan pie, that kind of thing. And if you look really closely, you can see that we've got our sweet potato filling down there, or yams if you use those, and our pecans up on top, and they're nice and crusty, and a nice thin cookie-like crust, not a doughy crust that just really ruins the whole thing. This is one of my favorite pies to make, and it's really not that hard, especially because you're not blind baking the crust and screwing around with all that. It's pretty easy to make this one. The biggest perils are, you know, as usual, over mixing your flour and the dough, and possibly exploding a yam in the microwave if you set it for too long. Basically, you want to just do 5 minutes on that and then check it, and then do another couple of minutes more maybe, but don't get too crazy. At any rate, I appreciate you, as always, joining me for another episode of Rupert Cooks. Thanks so much, and I'll see you again on the next one. Bye-bye.